Hey everybody, I thought I would share my hernia story with you today, especially if anybody is going through what I went through. I didn't even know I had a hernia. And then when I found out, it took me 20 years before I actually got my hernia repaired. So let me start. Years ago, I was getting a lot of cramping in my stomach area. And I went to my doctor, and after sitting and talking to me for about 15 minutes, now this is the first time I told him about this. He told me I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is a stress disorder. I was a senior pastor at that time and managing the church and overseeing the School of the Prophets, writing a book, raising my children, adult children, well, almost adult children, and living in New York City. You can imagine the stress that I was under. And the doctor said, you've got the job for it, Based on what you tell me about your life is how I have come to the conclusion that you have irritable bowel syndrome. He said, so if I were to look or show you your colon on a film or on a screen, it would look normal to you. He said, because it's a stress disorder. So I said, okay, I believed him. He gave me some pills that did not work. And I went on living my life, running, taking, I had a business, income tax preparation business, loved it for 30 years. So I was a busy girl. I am what they, a true entrepreneur. I was running, I was hustling. I have 3 children and, I had to take care of them. So, I didn't have the luxury of just sitting around, or I didn't have anybody who was helping me financially. So I had to do this on my own. And so I went on living and went on doing what I was supposed to do for God. At that time, I didn't have the type of relationship I do with God now, because if I did, I would have talked to him about the IBS then, and I really didn't. I asked him to heal me, but that was the extent of it. Shortly thereafter, the pain bothered me so much that it caused me to go to the gastroenterologist, who told me that I had a nasty tumor in the base of my colon, and I had to have a colon resection. I had that surgery. Hope nobody ever has to have that surgery. Horrible. However, we on my hernia story. When they discovered I had a hernia, it was because I had had the surgery. See, surgery often weakens an area where you were cut, because we wasn't meant to be cut on. But based on our lifetime, how we live, how we eat, and other factors, we may be in a position where we have to have surgery. I wish today that I would have asked God at that time. I wish I would have had the relationship and to ask him. I did have a relationship, but not the way that I have with him now. See, when I was diagnosed with cancer, God healed me with no chemo, no radiation. I did have to have that tumor removed. That's how I found that I had, the tumor in the first place, through that process. But that created a hernia problem for me. So, it wasn't the IBS that was creating this cramping in my colon. That hernia was there. And, unfortunately, I didn't do anything about it. You know why? Because I couldn't see it. I couldn't even feel it when I put my hands on the top of my belly. So I kept running. I kept doing me. And it kept growing. And by the time it started to poke out, to poke through and be visible to me, it was like 10 years, maybe 15 years. And then I had asked the Lord prior to that, Lord, should I get this hernia repaired? He said no. Now, how many people would listen to God and not do it. I did. People thought I was crazy, y'all. They was like, "Now, Diana, you taking this too far. This thing with God." I said, "Oh, really?" So the God that healed me from cancer, with colon cancer at the age of 39. I'm 62 today, y'all. By the way, I don't have any conditions, not even IBS. See, because I didn't know. I believed the doctor when he said I had IBS. For whatever reason, I never asked God if I had IBS until 20 years have passed by. And when I asked the Lord, did I have IBS? He said no. I mean, he said it so fast. You know, I felt like an idiot sitting up there believing all that time that I had IBS. Put your faith. You have it. You have it. You have it. He gave it to you. Put your faith in God. Now, again, I would never tell you not to go to the doctor. If that's where you put your faith, then put your faith in a doctor. But, you know, for these things that's going on in the world, you need God. You need to invite him in the situation. Include him in it. After all, he made you. So by the time I asked him, should I get it repaired? He said no. Do you know, I ended up going years just waiting on God to tell me, and this thing got bigger. By the time it was all said and done, it was 4 centimeters. Now, by the time I was ready, and, you know, God was going to allow this, the doctor said no. He said, I won't do the surgery. I said, why? He said, because you weigh too much. I said, I weigh too much. So if I would have come in here and my colon would have been twisted, and I would have been in a situation where it was life and death because of that, then you would have did. He said, well, that's a different story. It would have been an emergency situation then. But right now, you're not in pain. You know, you're sitting here, everything's calm. So my recommendation, this was a black surgeon. He told me, go lose, 75 pounds. Now, come on, y'all. Y'all know 75 pounds ain't easy to lose. In fact, he recommended that I go to the weight loss place, you know, and I forget the name of it. But he said they have different, you don't have to get a gastro bypass. There are other things they can do to help you lose weight. Well, what was that going to be? Take some pills? What was that going to be? Get a sleeve? All of that stuff. He had given me the paperwork so quickly on that. I had refused. I knew I wasn't going to do that. So I didn't go. So I went home. I was disappointed. I'm going to tell you the truth. Because by then, I had wanted that knot that was now poking out of my belly, that I had to wear shirts that you couldn't see it. I wanted it gone. I wanted it repaired. So I said, that's all right. I'll go to another surgeon. Went to another surgeon. He said the same thing. I will not do this. You need to lose weight. And I asked them why. They said, because if we can repair it with no problem. Your weight isn't stopping us from repairing it. What's happening is that once we repair it, if you keep that weight on you, you will eventually, that hernia will return. Did y'all hear me? Eventually. Now they playing God. Now, like I said, they are limited to what they are, the knowledge that they have. So I had to go to a third one. I wasn't going to give up. Third one said the same thing. But see, each one of them said, one said lose 75 pounds, another one said lose 50 pounds, another one said 40. That was another thing that upset me. Why couldn't they agree on how much weight I needed to lose in order for them to feel like, they should do the surgery for me? Which was just, I cannot fathom. Here I come with this 4 centimeter hole in my stomach now. And you won't do this? a 4 centimeter hernia here going on. However you say it, I'm sorry. When I think about how now they're trying to think about what may happen after I'm recovered in the future. And they all had, I said, well, what's the percentage that you think it will return? One said 20%, another one said 80%. Another one, I said, oh, come on. These are surgeons, mind you, here in Tampa that was telling me that. So now, there's another reason why I didn't get the surgery. Even when I could, I didn't have health insurance. For years, I didn't have health insurance. It was so expensive to have health insurance. And then I finally, by the time I did get it, and I was able to get the hernia repaired, now the doctor said no. So by the time I lost weight, because I'm going to tell you something, if you got a hernia and you got health insurance and you don't have a weight issue, please go do it. Please go do it. Because by the time I could get it done, by the time I had the health insurance, and that was when I went to them and they said no, this hernia was pushing, it was pushing on me in a way that I couldn't eat. I mean, I could eat, but as it got bigger, it reduced the amount of food that I could take in me without feeling too full or really uncomfortable. It would hurt then. So, I got disappointed. I got down. I ended up losing weight. I mean, I ate, this mind you, I ate, but it started hurting. And I ended up losing 50 pounds because God told me how to eat. And most of that weight loss didn't happen before the surgery, it happened after. He completely changed my eating plan. He told me, he's the one that told me to stop eating meat in 1999. And I stopped, and then temporarily I went back after I had the surgery. I hadn't gotten so down. I started eating a little chicken, and that's when that 13 centimeter cyst grew in me. I'm telling you, if I would have listened to God, he may have told me never to have that colon resection, because he's the God that healed me from cancer. He's the God that took me out the project. He's the God that has changed my life. He's the God that helped me raise my children financially and made sure I had the money. He sent money from different ways. He's the God that healed me of my chronic asthma with a partially damaged lung. I don't have asthma. I don't have cancer. I don't have a hernia no more. But with the hernia, but let me tell you how I got this repaired. I asked the Lord, well, when I'm able to finally get this done by the surgeons, what hospital should I go to? He said, Advent. I went to Advent, but I didn't go. I thought, okay, I'm going to work on this losing weight. And I lost a little weight. But what happened was my colon started to twist finally. After all these years, I know God kept me all those years. It started to twist. And when I went in that hospital, I was in pain, and the emergency room at Advent. And the doctor that they sent in said, and this doctor was on call. He saw me, and he said, well, before we can know that that's, twisted or anything like that, which then makes it an emergency situation, then we have to do the surgery so that this thing doesn't get to the point where it breaks or, I don't know the word he used for it, and which could be life-threatening. So I said, sir, he said, I got to give you some contrast. You got to take some contrast in so we can see if there's an obstruction in your bowel. I said, sir, I can't wait for that. I got to have this surgery now. So he froze and stood there and looked at me. And then he said, I'll return. As though, well, sorry, this is the way it got to be. 5 minutes later, the nurse comes running in the room and says to me, Mrs. Vasquez, we've got to get you prepped and ready for surgery. I said, what? The doctor told me he's not going to do it. I said, he told us that. And then all of a sudden, he just changed his mind miraculously. And he's rushing us to get you to the operating room. She said, he's never done this before. You know who that was. That was the Lord. He changed this doctor's mind. He said, the king's heart is in his hand, and he'll turn it whichever way he wants to. That's what the Lord says. That's Bible. Read that. That's why you got to ask God about these things. He gave me the right doctor. Do you know 20 minutes later, I was in the not in the emergency room, in the OR. And I'm in the OR laying in this room, and I see all these people in here, and they got on gowns, and I'm laying there, and here comes this big, tall, handsome black guy. And he's nice bedside manner. He said, hello, my name is Dr. So-and-so. And the first thing I think, he says, I'm your anesthesiologist. I'm going to be putting you to sleep. I'm going to be keeping you, asleep and comfortable. And I just wanted to introduce myself. So he came and he sat on the side of my bed, on the left side. And I said, well, are you from New York City? Because I hear that New York in him. I'm a New Yorker, born and raised in New York City. Queensbridge, by the way, in case y'all know that. So anyhow, he said, yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. Bed-Stuy. I think he said Bed-Stuy. So I'm talking to him and blah, 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 and I'm just like so comfortable. He said, by the way, I'm going to turn on a little oxygen for you. Just to, because they put that oxygen on you. So I'm gonna just give you a little oxygen while the doctors are getting ready, and then I'll put you to sleep. He was pulling my leg. Whatever that oxygen he was doing put me to sleep. Because what happened is when I woke up, I didn't know I was asleep. And I said, so when are you guys going to do the surgery? Because they were moving me. They said, it's finished. I said, what? I touched my stomach area. I was like, it was flat. I was like, oh my God. Smooth. I hope he see this video. Smooth, wonderful. I had a great experience there. The doctor that saw me in the emergency room that happened to be there was the chief of surgery. And that was his area of expertise, fixing hernias. And I'm telling you, he was cool. He was wonderful. When he came in to see me afterwards, he came in and checked on me, sat down, took his time, asked me how I feel, checked the bag, everything, just wonderful. See, God knows when. That's why we got to wait on God. But we can't wait on him. We don't know to wait on him if we don't have a relationship and if we don't ask him. You got to trust him. Trust him. I'm telling you, he'll never let you down. Why? Because his name is on the line. And because he's in love with you. I got to tell you that all the time. You got to know the truth. He's in love with you. I wanted to share my hernia story. If you have a hernia, please don't be afraid to get it repaired. And if you're like me and they cite that you have too much weight, give it to God. Cast your care on him. Ask God to create a situation whereby they will repair, or to just do it himself. After all, he's the great physician. Can I tell you, I thought, why do I got to go? I told him many times, God, why do I got to go to the doctor when you're the great physician? And you know what? He healed me of cancer. He healed me of, he didn't have to heal me of IBS because I never had it. Turns out, all that stuff is gone. I don't have one problem. High blood pressure, nothing. God is good, y'all. He's good and worthy to be praised. Y'all be blessed.